So I think that we probably have just about everybody that might have registered today. We might have a few more people signing on, which is great. Again, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for Newground's first ever virtual town hall. We decided to reach out and invite various people from our boards, our advisory board, board of directors, young professionals board, key supporters, longtime donors, all of you who've really helped us through the years manage and survive and help so many veterans and families in need. Right now, during the last couple of months, we've certainly experienced a much greater need by a lot of our veterans and families that we're working with, as well as additional families and veterans out there that have found themselves in unexpected circumstances because of these really unprecedented times. So first, I again say welcome, and it's great to see all of you and everyone well and healthy, hopefully, and hopefully your loved ones as well. This has been an unusual couple of months, 2.5 months since we all shut down. So just wanted to bring us together to share a little bit about what we've been doing at Newground during these 2.5 months, and as usual, then have a little bit of a conversation with those of you who've helped us so much through the years and shared your input and feedback and thoughts and ideas. So first, I'll just bring us up to date on what's been happening here. We also shut our offices down as they had been acting as of March 13th. We then went to a 1 staff person per day in the office model as of March 16th. And we did that for a couple of weeks until the governor really asked everyone to stay home as much as possible. And so we luckily were in a position where we had computer services and internet and online access so that all of our staff members could work from home and remote into our server in the office and pick up right like they were sitting at their desk at work. They could access email and our files and client information through a secure server that protects all that information but allows everyone access. And so we had one staff person in the office a day and the rest of us working from home. And then by the end of March, we transitioned to, staff in the office one person per day based on what they needed to do. So for example, I go in on Fridays and so I'm in on Fridays to catch up on mail and bills and paperwork and all that sort of stuff. Evel Sweeney, like I mentioned, our associate program director who's on the call, is in on Mondays. So we coordinate with each other to meet our needs and have someone there. And then everyone else is working remotely from home. And we've also transitioned all of our meetings with our clients to remote meetings, and that started right away, March 16th. We started doing phone sessions with our clients. The social workers and Evel were in touch with everyone by phone. Some of them are now doing Zoom meetings like this, so we can see our clients, they can see us. And I think one of the most critical things that we've been doing is delivering items to our veterans and families that need them. So we're delivering food items, household supplies, baby needs, medical supplies, and essential safety items such as masks and gloves and disinfectant and hand sanitizer. And of course, like the rest of the country, there was periods of time where we were struggling to have access to that, but we managed to coordinate different opportunities and be able to get those items and those needs out to our families and veterans. In addition to the families and veterans that we work with in our long-term housing program, that's the 2 veterans families right now that are living out in our house in Huntington, and our Jumpstart program, which are families, homeless families or recently housed families that are transitioning out of homelessness. And then our veterans program, which includes our veterans that are in the Northport VA's supportive housing program, as well as veterans that are in homeless shelters waiting for placement, hopefully in that supportive housing program. We also are working with homeless families in the Westbury and Freeport school districts. That's part of the work that we've always done, education advocacy work for any homeless child or youth in specific school districts on Long Island. Most recently, it's been Westbury and Freeport. And with this crisis happening, we also started offering our outreach services and delivering food and other essential items to those households that needed them as well. So Evel has been spearheading our contact with our Westbury families, and our social worker, Lauren, who's primarily works with our veterans program, has been doing the work with our Freeport families. So to start this school year, right now we started with 95 students, homeless students in the Westbury School District, and we have approximately 78 on the list from Freeport. However, we know full well that Freeport list is very undercounted. We actually have worked with a couple of homeless families in Freeport that are not on the list that we've been working with this school year. So we know that Freeport probably has more like 250 to 300 homeless children in their district. It's just that they're not fully counted yet. And we just started our work with the Freeport School District in September, and I mentioned Laura Lustbader is on the line with us. She was a big help in that, helping us write those grants for the district, and then bringing new ground in to provide the services. So we have a lot of work to do in Freeport to help them gear up and better identify their homeless families, so that then we can help provide better services to those families that are not identified at this time. But again, right now we're offering significantly more services to the homeless families in those districts because we know the need is there, and it's very helpful. We've had a good number of food deliveries that we've been doing, and great partners to help us do that. We are connected with Island Harvest, and we continue that connection. So we get food assistance to stock our pantry from Island Harvest. They've been great with sharing updated information almost on a daily basis about what food pantries are open or closed, and continuing to get food items out. And we've also partnered with some great organizations and individuals. Megan Fay is on the call in the meeting with us today, came by, I guess it was a week ago Friday now, and delivered a tremendous amount of food, including fresh perishable vegetables and fruits, and household supplies, disinfectant, dish soap, some really important things that families need, toilet paper, and delivered that to New Grounds. And then we also received from her church, Church Unleashed out east, a tremendous food delivery. And so we've been able to get that food out on a rolling basis to our families. And Salina and Evel, who are with us, have been doing a lot of that delivery work, and it's been very helpful. Our families have certainly, and our veterans have certainly been very hard hit by this crisis. We know, many of our families have been laid off and are now unemployed, like so many other Americans. But then we also see a lot of our families who have still a working parent or head of household, that they are essential workers. And so they are at great risk of becoming sick. We saw that with one of our moms. She's an aide, a home health aide or certified nurse's aide in a nursing home, and she ended up getting the virus and being home very sick for a couple of weeks. Unfortunately, she has very little family support. She has a 5-year-old son, and she was forced to drop him off with her elderly grandfather because she couldn't care for him while she was sick, and she didn't want to expose him. But she was really taking a great risk that her son might have ended up making her grandfather sick. And so, she had a really difficult decision to make. And then Evelyn, working with her, was delivering a lot of essential food items and cleaning items so she could, when she felt better, then get her house ready to bring her son home and go back to work. So she's, right back in the thick of it. She's, wearing masks and PPE every day. And, and despite all of this, while homesick with the virus, she is studying to become a nurse. And she took a final exam on the computer while homesick and aced it. And, she's working as hard as she can to still achieve her goals and have that brighter and better future. So, for everybody that we're working with, like this mom, we're just really trying to help them get through this time and keep them going the best way that we can, so that, when we come to the other side, they're still in good position to realize those goals and dreams and why they came to New Ground in the first place. We've also done some transition with our financial literacy work. So that's a big part of the work that we do with our veterans, of course. And over the last 6 weeks or so, a big part of the work has been now, first it was helping them identify if they could get a stimulus check and figure out how they could sign up to receive the stimulus check. Some of our veterans are partially disabled or fully disabled, and so they don't work and they don't file taxes. Some of our families or veterans might not have filed taxes in the last couple of years simply because of being homeless. Even if they worked, they had a W-2, filing taxes we all do it. It takes a lot of coordination. You've got to get your mail. You've got to get your W-2s and, you've got to have your bank, INT statements and all of that. And for our families, sometimes when they're homeless and they're juggling children and life circumstances in the shelter and they're hopping from one place to the next, having all that paperwork and filing their taxes is not top of mind. In fact, that's a big thing we do with a lot of individuals who first come to New Ground. The first year they're with us during tax season, we spend a lot of time sorting it out and helping them figure out how to file that first time, get all their paperwork together and get things back in order with the IRS. But for those who were expecting stimulus checks or potentially getting stimulus checks, if you hadn't filed taxes in 2018, the IRS didn't necessarily, or the government didn't have a bank account for you or know how to necessarily get you the funds. So we helped a lot of our veterans sign up so that they could supply a bank account number and get a stimulus check directly. And then we also worked with our veterans and families around how to best use that stimulus check. Just like we do with tax refunds every year, we sort of help. We have a worksheet where the social worker sits with the family or veteran and goes through what's the refund amount going to be and what are their debts, and then prioritize those debts. Is it a judgment that's on their credit that's really hurting their credit score? Can they negotiate? Can we help them negotiate with the debtor and pay off that judgment and get that off their report? Or if they don't have that type of stuff, but they have various credit cards, then looking at what are the interest rates on these credit cards and which ones should you pay off in full or pay down significantly because they have the highest interest rates. And of course, that whole process is also done in an educating way so that going forward, our clients, are savvy when it comes to these key financial matters. And so, we helped our families figure out and veterans how to use that stimulus money to their best extent. So, for example, one of our long-term housing program veteran moms out in Huntington, she had one debt left on her credit report, and it was a big one, which is why it was the last one. She was working towards trying to pay it off, and she wanted to negotiate a settlement. And at one point, they had offered her a settlement amount that was significantly better, and then she didn't have as much money as she needed. So the deal, fell apart, and so she had to, try to negotiate again. And now they wanted more and more money from her. So when the settlement, when the stimulus money came out, and everybody knows everybody's getting $1,200, right? Like that's the stimulus amount per adult. So we talked to her about strategizing and calling the debt company and saying, look, I got a stimulus check for $1,200. It's got your name on it. You can have it if you want it, but I don't have a penny more. And they took the deal because they knew, like, she, you know, that's the amount she had. And I mean, it was a $3,000 debt. So, you know, her hope was to pay $1,500 of it and erase it from her credit report. She got it for $1,200. It's done, and now she has zero debt on her credit report. And she's working on now, again, continuing to build her credit, and she'll do that with her social worker's help over the next year or 2 years as she continues in our long-term housing program. So those are things that we've continued to do with other veterans and families, helping them figure out, you know, for some, the stimulus check is how much can I pay towards rent potentially and some other bills. We've also helped with calling credit card companies or other bills to negotiate extending payment deadlines because there's no money coming in after the stimulus check, or there might be unemployment, but it's not enough to cover all of the household bills. So we're negotiating that. And another key thing that we've been helping our families and veterans with, especially our veterans, it seems, that they've been using a lot of their phone data to try and pay bills online because, you know, they're not going to places to pay their bills or going to the post office and mailing in a payment. They're staying home and trying to stay safe, but it means that they're using up their data. And so we've been helping them negotiate with their phone cell service companies to help give them more data because it's so essential right now to keep them from going to the post office, going to the bank, and staying home to stay safe. So those are a lot of the key things that we've found ourselves doing during this time. We're also doing a lot of grant writing work. Right now, like most nonprofits, many of you may have heard, you know, nonprofits are suffering through this specifically because we can't have our fundraising events. Today, in fact, was our golf outing day. This is the first Monday in over 15 years that I have not had to worry about the weather. So in some regards, you know, that was an interesting change. Usually for about 2.5 weeks before our golf outing date, I am just watching the weather like mad and you know, hoping for a great day. And we have Sister Mairead, you know, working wonders with those upstairs to try and get us a good weather day. But we didn't have to worry about that. Unfortunately, it meant that the revenues we would normally generate from today, you know, what weren't possible. And I was actually, Louise, it's great to have you with us. I was thinking May 16th, this past Saturday, was supposed to be the Levittown Car Show. As part of their, you know, 75th anniversary, and they had selected New Ground as a partner, and some of the proceeds were going to come to New Ground to help our veterans and families, and that was, of course, obviously canceled as well. So, you know, without that fundraising ability, we've got to figure out ways to keep the funds coming in so we can keep doing this work. One good news item is that we did apply for the PPP loan, the Paycheck Protection Program loan through the CARES Act, the Stimulus Act. Many of you may have read about it or heard about it. It was to help small businesses. Nonprofits were included to cover payroll for 8 to 10 weeks. And we got that funding back in the beginning of April. So that was a tremendous help and really in some ways helped fill the gap that would have been our golf revenues. So it's allowed us to keep ourselves fully staffed. Everybody's on board, you know, working as hard as they can. And that's great news. And the other piece of work that we've been doing really to try and manage the finance side of things is a lot, like I mentioned, of grant writing. So we've had some great partnerships in the past, and many of them have stepped up again. For example, Dunkin' Donuts Foundation, the Joy in Childhood Foundation, has supported us the past few years They came out very early on and said, usually our grant cycle is applications due in June, and then we make decisions over the summer and the funding goes out in October, but we know this is unprecedented times. We're releasing funding now. Here's the application, and it's simplified so you can reply very quickly. And we did that, sent in the application within a couple of hours, and within days we had received a $5,000 check from Dunkin' Donuts. So they were really proactive. Capital One Bank is another great partner, and we had been invited to apply for a grant with them. It was a $15,000 grant we were asked to submit for, and it was program specific. And then really that first week in March where we were all shut down, the week of March 16th, they emailed and said, look, we know you can't do the same programming that you might have been planning to do. If you want to transition this grant to a general support grant, just send us a letter. And we did that, and we got the $15,000 grant a couple of weeks ago from them. So again, that was just a huge help. And we've secured other grants from like the Long Island Community Foundation, some family foundations. The Waldorf Family Foundation provided us a $5,000 grant. We're actively continuing to look for any type of COVID emergency grant opportunities. So if anybody knows of any of them, I'm going to stop talking in a couple of minutes and we'll open it up for questions and feedback. But, just putting that out there that anybody who might know of any emergency grant opportunities, we're actively submitting grants. We have been invited to apply for a grant with Bank of America this month, so that'll be done. We submitted one to the Mother Cabrini Foundation, which also had a COVID emergency grant opportunity. We have more out there. We just, the end of last week, great news, we were approved for a $20,000 grant from Wells Fargo for programming and COVID emergency funds. So that's another great support to us. So all in all, the grant writing has been very important, and so far, knock on wood, pretty successful. So just thinking, if I've covered everything, one thing that I would add is that our board of directors, luckily for us, we had our regular board meeting scheduled for March 18th. So when we had that meeting, it was the first week where things were shutting down, and the board was able to really brainstorm and come together on key things, and at that time made a decision that we were going to meet more frequently, of course, through Zoom. That's how we're doing things these days. But the board has been meeting every 2 to 3 weeks since things started happening in mid-March, and that's been tremendously helpful in us being able to respond really quickly and act really quickly. Like with the PPP loan, our application went in on the first day it was available to go in, April 3rd, and that's because we had scheduled a board meeting on April 1st, and we were able to make decisions and approve going for that funding. And we had the funds in the bank then on April 10th, which was very, very quickly compared to, we know, a lot of other organizations and businesses that struggled to get funding. So the board's involvement and oversight and commitment has been just tremendous through all of this as well. I think that, I kind of covered a lot, and I appreciate, again, everybody joining and listening and hearing about what we've been up to, but I would like to open it up to questions and feedback and thoughts, and most of us are on video, so, you can wave or, raise your hand. There's a neat little button down at the bottom that is a raise your hand button if you want to use that, or else you can just wave, and we'll probably just help you mute and unmute yourselves as needed, because I know sometimes it's challenging to find all the buttons on your screen. Ed McDougall, yeah.
I just want to say something that builds on what you had talked about with the board. I was incredibly proud of the board because right at the outset, as you mentioned on March 16th, let's face it, when you are facing the things we had and we didn't know whether we were going to get grants and we weren't sure about the golf outing yet and so forth, so on, but the board absolutely made a decision on the basis that in its entire 30-year history, or 29-year history, the resources that New Ground has never been more valuable to society than it is now. You know, trained master's level social workers, educational people, people like Shannon, you know, and so while many organizations, and I've talked to other board presidents and other board members, many organizations were talking about how can they cut staff, how can they cut expenses and so forth. And the board made the decision right at the get-go, no, that's not where we're going. We're going to find a way to get our way through this thing because the services that we're providing, they've never been more needed by society than right now. And that's when we started meeting every 2 weeks and, you know, so forth. So I just wanted to say how proud I was to be heading that board. It wasn't my decision alone. It was the decision of the board, but it was just really clear right from the outset that that's what's going to be our approach. So I just wanted everybody to hear that.
Thanks, Ed. Gary Gendris, our treasurer of the board.
I just wanted to make note that Shannon deserves a lot of credit for all of the work that she's been doing ever since the virus has started. She's done an enormous amount of work just to get grants submitted as far as applications are concerned. She's jumped on every one that we could possibly get. She spent most of her time working on that in addition to being a mom, taking care of the office. I mean, she's gone over and above the call of duty. So we really do appreciate Shannon. She is the backbone of New Ground, and it's because of her that this money's coming in. So I just want to say thank you, Shannon, for all your work.
Thank you very much, Gary. I appreciate that. Rod Gannis.
Yeah, I was just wondering, since we have Evel and Salina on the phone, could we maybe hear some, you know, obviously anonymous, but, you know, some of the reactions that we're hearing from some of our clients as far as some of their challenges that, you know, that we as, you know, very hopefully fortunate individuals are not facing. You know, I'd be curious to hear from Evel and Salina a little bit if possible.
Yeah, that's a great idea, Rod. I'll let Salina, I don't know, Evel's on the phone. So Salina, we can see you. Why don't you go first and then Evel.
Okay. Sure. So for me, I think some of the biggest challenges that I'm hearing from the parents that I'm working with have to do with juggling everything at once. So now having kids home, having them to go online and do school, to do homework. If they're younger children, then the parent is obviously heading up a lot of that. So for parents who have to work from home, they have to now juggle working from home at the same time, parenting 24/7 when the kids might be in school, providing meals. And I know Evel can speak to a lot of the education-related services and education-related needs that the families have at the moment. I think the biggest thing is just juggling, you know, being thrown into juggling everything at once. And for those parents who are out of work, I think like a lot of people who are laid off at the moment, contacting unemployment, knowing which numbers to call. And then you have the big question on everybody's mind, what if I get sick, and dealing with the stress of that. And a lot of the conversations that I'm having with the families have to do around support. And, you know, I was telling Shannon a few weeks ago, a lot of the 45-minute or an hour meetings that I would have with parents are now phone calls that are even longer because they feel isolated and want somebody to talk to. So really just being there to provide any type of emotional support in addition to the concrete things like phone numbers to call, you know, how to get access to food, whether it's through us, for whatever we can provide. If we can't provide certain items, how to get them through a local pantry. So really kind of comprehensively everything that might be needed right now.
Salina, Joe Burns here. If you don't mind, I have a question. As it relates to students, does the school district, how do they participate? Does the school district provide computers or tablets for their use, or is that another need that needs to be addressed?
Well, I don't know if you could speak to that better than I could. I know you have more contact with the school district.
Yes. So unfortunately, not 100% of school districts were able to provide computers, but for the school districts that we're mainly working in, Freeport and Westbury, they were both each able to provide computers to all of the students as needed. So a part of our work was reaching out to parents to find out if they had the technology they needed, and along with that technology, whether or not they had the internet access that they needed. So a large part of our work was ensuring that the school districts were aware of the need as far as computers, laptops, and then also looking into the community for internet access. So we were able to find quite a few companies that were providing 90 days free internet access or very low cost internet access, and then reaching out to the parents with that and providing assistance in having all of that set up for them. So a few of the other school districts where we may have one or two children are in did not have computers or laptops available to those students. And I know for one of the families, we were able to provide a laptop to ensure that this young student was able to complete his assignments. And that worked out very well. For the others who did not have, they would have to share with, other siblings. For example, we have one family where the students are in 2 different school districts. And one district, which is Long Beach, was able to provide for that particular student. And then she was able to share with her siblings as well who didn't have. But overall, I'd say pretty much all of our families are students. I should say they're doing pretty well as far as internet access and as far as having the technology to complete their homework. The challenges, of course, are the same, having 6 students in the household who are all school age and single head of household, having to not only supervise those students and provide food, but also being able to assist with homework and whatever assignments they're given. So what we started recently as well is making contact with the families and offering tutoring via video to the students. And as well, I check in with each family, each student at least once per week to see how they're doing with their homework, and also to follow up with the school district if any extra assistance is needed.
Very good. Thank you, Evel.
You're welcome.
Yeah, and Laura, I see you've got your hand up. One thing I would just add that is, thank you, Salina and Evel, for bringing up the education piece and sort of the mental health piece, which are both been really critical areas for our social workers. Lauren, as I mentioned, our primary social worker for the Veterans Program, has been doing a lot of mental health check-ins. A lot of our veterans, were at the Northport VA on a regular basis. They were in groups, and they would go not just for medical appointments, but really for socialization. They had friends that they would meet up with or have, breakfast or coffee or lunch with when they would be out there. And all of that came to a, screeching halt with this virus. And they're very isolated and feeling alone. And so Lauren's also doing an increased number, instead of a weekly session with some of the veterans, she's in contact with them, 2 or 3 times a week, just to check in and make sure that they're feeling okay, talk through, any challenges or feelings that they're having. And then the education piece has also been a huge part of our work. As Evel mentioned, we gave one of our reading program laptops, which is normally used in the office during our reading program, to a family for one of the students to make sure he could get his work done. We also had another computer we delivered to the Huntington family so that her son could get his remote work done. And knowing and recognizing the challenges that parents are facing right now with doing so much teaching of their own with distance learning, they're surrogate teachers at this point. We are starting to put in place remote tutoring, and so we're looking forward to having that start in the next week or two. First with our long-term housing program families and a handful of Jumpstart families, and then we'll expand it as needed. And that is something that we're actually looking at doing through the summer, because normally we have our after-school reading program Monday and Thursday evenings in the office during the school year, and then we run an abbreviated summer program for 6 to 8 weeks. That's one evening a week, just to make sure that the students keep up with their learning and don't fall behind between June and September. So we're looking at doing this remote learning starting now and go through the summer so that we can really try to help the children stay on track. And then Laura, I know you had your hand up there.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I work a lot with Evel in the Freeport district specifically, but that I knew that the kids not every child had access to a computer. The district, just like the nation, apparently, was not prepared for having a stockpile of needed tools like this for high-risk kids. So what we're doing in our grant for next year, because we're right now in these 2 months working on our proposal for next year, we're in a 3-year grant cycle, is to put aside some of the money that would have gone for other kinds of supplies for beginning to purchase tablets that will be stored for when kids need them, when they're very sick, during some kind of emergency, or anything else. And I plan on speaking to the grant writer for Westbury, who's a friend of mine, and asking her to do the same with their budget for next year. But we also reminded, and districts tend to forget, and they should be reminded whenever you need to remind them, that every one of them has what's called a Title I fund, and it's their fund for working with high poverty children. And a percentage of that fund must by law be set aside for working with homeless children specifically. Tends to be 1% of the budget, 1% of the Title I funding. There is no reason why they can't also be urged to start purchasing exactly the kind of tools that we found kids didn't have during this go-round, so that they are having them for such emergencies in the future. So I just wanted to add that. And you guys do a great job. I've worked with you all for like 30 years, and you've always been wonderful. So congratulations on your good work, Shannon, Evel, Salina, all of you. You're terrific. Thanks.
Thanks, Laura.
Yeah, thank you, Laura. It's great to see you. Any other thoughts, feedback, questions? June, yeah, June Rader.
Shannon, she's muted.
Shannon, you're muted too. No, June. Go ahead, June.
Am I okay now? You can hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Okay. I just wanted to say that you make sure that everybody, all your clients know that there are 700 places in the state where you could get tested. I know one is at Jones Beach, and one is right behind the Freeport Library. They put up tents there and they're testing. So I just wanted.
With veterans should know it to make sure they're okay.
Yeah.
Otherwise they'll be sick.
Yeah.
So
just wanted to say that.
Try that.
No, that's great, June. Thank you very much. And it is something actually that, we've gotten some emails, updates from the Northport VA through this crisis. You know, they'll send like a, you know, update email about what's happening and, you know, what things are still, you know, closed down or how veterans should go about, you know, accessing resources. But testing has not been in those emails. You know, it hasn't been discussed, and you're right, it's critical. And I think actually we have a social work team meeting in a couple of hours later today, and we'll be talking about that specifically, because I think you're right. You know, and it's kind of two things right now. There's the opportunity to be tested if they, you know, have any kind of symptoms and think they have the virus, but then also to get the antibody testing. Although we're not really sure what the antibody testing may or may not mean, you know, it is, you know, a much more widely available, and to really encourage veterans to get out there and get tested is important.
Right.
Good.
Definitely.
Right.
Yes.
Thank you. Louise, yes, hi.
Unmute. Hi, everybody. I just want to say something. I have not been active in the organization other than trying to get the word out to the Levittown community about the good work that this organization does. I've been impressed from day one. When you first came to Levittown and I learned about you, totally impressed by what you do and how you take care of the veterans and their families. I know you don't have a huge staff, and I'm sitting here listening to all the wonderful things that you've done and all the progress you made. And I just want you to know, you are fantastic. You really are doing a wonderful, wonderful job, and all of you who are involved should be very, very proud of what you do. And our car show will come on again. Not sure when. We're hoping for the fall. I'm sure all the town sites, every location is going to be bombarded with requests to use their properties and what have you. I think we have an in with the school district. I've kind of been keeping up with them and hoping that we can use them again. And we'll continue to help support in a small way, help support your organization. But thanks so much for what you do. I do need to leave the meeting. I just wanted to say that to let you all know that everything that you're doing is well received and very, very, very beneficial to all of the community and to all of our veterans. And I have a granddaughter that's in the Coast Guard. She's not in the Coast Guard yet. She's a cadet. So she's at the academy. So very into anything that helps the military these days. She, thank God, does not need help with anything, but she's there, and I'm very attuned to military now. So God bless you all. You're great.
Louise, she's at the Coast Guard Academy.
Yes, she's in Connecticut. The academy right now is actually closed. She had a traumatic brain injury a few months ago, just before Thanksgiving.
Oh.
So she's staying with a host family in Connecticut so she can continue her therapy while she's there. So
I almost went to the Coast Guard Academy.
Did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, she chose Coast Guard over West Point. So.
Wow. Well, congratulations, Louise. Thank you for joining. And thank you.
Thanks for all you do.
Thanks for what you
enjoy the rest.
Yeah. Thanks for introducing us to so many great people in Levittown.
You're welcome. Our pleasure. Take care now.
Bye.
You too. Thanks, Louise. So I know we're kind of approaching the 1 o'clock hour. I'm not sure if anybody else had any thoughts or questions or feedback, ideas. Like I mentioned, you know, we're doing a lot of grant writing. If anybody has any ideas and comes across anything out there like that, you know, definitely reach out. I'm in the office on Fridays primarily, but you know, all of you received this information about today's meeting via email, and you can definitely email us. And you know, I'm happy to share my personal cell phone number for anybody to reach me that way also.
Shannon, how do we distribute the food from the food bank?
Great question, Matt. We have a few things. So Island Harvest is our kind of local partner food bank. So they've organized different pick up routines. So Evel actually has been the primary person. They have a very as you can imagine, routine, clean, sanitized process in place where, Evel can now go when needed, and they put certain items in the car. She doesn't even get out of the car. Everybody's in masks and gloves, and then she drives off with the items and brings them to the office. We have a one large, very large freezer at the office where we have frozen meats and proteins for the family. So actually, with all the talk about pork being, hard to come by and meat being in high need, we actually have a lot of that. So we're able to get that out to families. So they're not paying, increased prices right now or anything. And then we also have our food pantry at the office, and I mentioned getting the large donations from Megan Fay and her church. All of that goes to the office, and then Evel, Salina, Lauren, our social worker for the Veterans Program, they go in one at a time at certain days and times and pack bags and boxes of food, and then deliver them out to the families. The office is basically closed to the public, so we don't have clients coming to the office. Sometimes they might come to make a pickup, and we'll have them stay outside in the car, and then we'll bring the food items out to the parking lot and leave them for them, and go back inside, and then they're able to take the items. We're trying to protect everybody, clients and staff, from being too close to others.
That's great. So if everyone on this call wants to bring food items in and other items in, can we do that, or should we do that?
Yes, if you reach out to me, and like Megan did a great job with that, we coordinated, and I got her a list of what was the essential high need items a couple of weeks ago, and we were able to then Megan went and shopping and purchased those items, and then we coordinated for her to bring them down to the office at a time where we were able to bring them in. So I don't want anybody, it doesn't make sense to just come to the office with stuff, because there may not be someone there. There's typically someone there most days, at least for a few hours, but we would coordinate bringing stuff down, Matt. So you can, email me or, call me on my cell, and we can coordinate that for sure.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yeah, yes. We're also doing gift cards. We've been supplying certain gift cards to different stores too, because, sometimes families have to get, or veterans have to get essential, milk, eggs, things of that nature that we might not have or be able to keep for an extended period of time in the office.
Great.
Thanks, Matt and Margarita, both for joining us. Matt and Margarita are advisory board members with us and are co-chairs for our Groundbreakers Gala, which typically happens in November. And I will say that, we've started the process of having the conversation about what will our fall events look like. And we have a small think tank group for both our bingo event, which is typically in September, our designer handbag bingo, and our gala in November, to start to talk about, what happens, what's plan B or plan C and plan D, depending on what the world looks like when we're getting closer to that. And if we will or won't be able to really, have 350 people in one room at a time. So I know it's almost 1 o'clock exactly. It's perfect timing. I'm glad this worked out well. And thank you for joining us during your lunch hour or midday breaks and tuning in. Thank you for all of your support day in and day out, year in and year out for all of our veterans and families. We are so grateful. And, we're looking forward to helping them through this and, turning the corner and continuing to help them achieve their goals and really break the cycle of homelessness. So thanks to all of you for helping them take those steps to make that happen. I hope you stay well, be well. Good to see everyone. I know I see many on various different meetings at different times. But June and Bernie, it's wonderful to see you. And Laura, thank you for tuning in, and all our board members and advisory board members. And my mom and dad are on the call. So thanks, Mom and Dad, for joining us. Yeah.
Thank
And
you,
Salina
Shannon.
and Evel for
Everybody
all
for
you
joining.
do.
Thank you, everybody.
Yeah.
Okay, have a great day.
Have a great day. Yeah.
You all.
Be well.
Bye.
Hi, Mary.